Silvio Berlusconi lives to fight another day, but for how much longer? The Italian Prime Minister survives the latest confidence vote in his government. What will that mean for Italy and its faltering economy? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Hazem Seeker. Italy's Silvio Berlusconi has survived yet another confidence vote in Parliament, but this time only by a single vote. It buys the embattled Prime Minister more time in power, but facing a tough economic crisis, poor approval ratings and growing dissent within his own coalition, it seems unlikely he could hold on for much longer. Well, now, like several European countries these days, Italy's problems are dominated by its economy. Growing unemployment and stagnant growth has led to growing protests by those fed up at the country's economic policies. Italy's debt currently stands at 120% of GDP. That's the highest in the Eurozone. Its credit rating was downgraded earlier this month. And meanwhile, Berlusconi himself is a defendant in 3 trials facing charges of bribery, abuse of power and sex with a minor. Well, joining me now to talk more about all of this are our 3 guests. From Rome, Maurizio Caprara, the diplomatic correspondent for Corriere della Sera. From Exeter, Andrea Teti, lecturer at the University of Aberdeen and a senior fellow at the European Centre for International Affairs. And also from Rome, Guido Moltedo, political commentator for Europa, a centre-left daily national newspaper in Italy. Good to have you all with us, gentlemen. Maurizio Caprara, if I could start with you. What next now for Berlusconi and, more importantly, what next for Italy?
As American and British people say, 1 week is a long time in politics, and we will have next week a bill that Mr. Berlusconi announced to try to enforce Italian economy. And today, the vote in the low chamber was an open vote with no secret scrutiny. But in the next times, we could have also some votes that will not be so open air, and in that cases the possibility of new defeat for the government exists. So we will continue to have another navigation as this one, another way of sailing without knowing what will be the next problem. And the victory for Silvio Berlusconi consists exactly in one thing, that the governmental crisis is not open today, so there is less time to build another government during the winter. In Italy, we never had national elections during the winter, and so it means that if there is a governmental crisis later, Silvio Berlusconi can try to face the electorate directly again, and not be defeated by a technician government or another kind of political solution.
Guido Moltedo, I mean, he survived this time around, but it hasn't done much for the country's confidence, has it?
Yeah, I think that if the elections are not at end, even early elections, I think, as Maurizio said a few minutes ago. But I think if there was a referendum on Silvio Berlusconi, a popular referendum, he would lose. I think that I think that the country is fed up with this way of managing things. Not so much with the Silvio Berlusconi himself as a person, as a leader, but his politics is too much absorbed by his own problems, by his own problem of survival, political survival, and this is pretty clear to many people are now around, even in the center-right spectrum of the political arena. So I think that this is a real problem. I mean, he's out of touch with the Italian people, according to me. And even if in the parliament he has a majority, and he will keep it, actually. Also because we must not forget that most MPs don't want to leave the parliament earlier than the natural end of the legislature, because they would lose their pension benefits. And so, I mean, there is a personal resistance to break with this political majority at the moment. So something very special must happen if to make Berlusconi fall, you know. Even today was a Pyrrhus victory, but even though I think it's going to last for a few months more.
So you're saying that part of the reason he's survived this long is because there really isn't a viable alternative for him at this point.
Exactly. I mean, in politics, there is no emptiness. Emptiness is not allowed. You know, it's not imaginable. So I mean, on the other side of the political spectrum, you don't have a viable alternative at the moment. Because it's fragmented, and so the only hope that the opposition has at the moment is that the majority itself somehow falls apart because it's really fragmented, and you can see it that it's fragmented. So the only hope that the opposition has, the only realistic hope, is that somehow the majority, the coalition, falls apart, and who knows if this is going to happen? According to me, it's not going to happen in the next months. But anyway, but this is just something that anybody and nobody can really foresee, you know. But the real weakness of the situation is that you have a majority, a strong majority, at the same time a very weak majority inside. Majority in sense of the numbers. The numbers are still quite safe for Berlusconi. Even today, if he survived, and you know, nobody could see it as a likely victory, and yet he won even this round. So I think that as I said, the majority is fragmented, but not so much to make fall the government, because there is no alternative even inside the majority. There is no another leader for the center-right at the moment.
Andrea Teti, what's your take on all of this? And does it surprise you that a man like Berlusconi, with all of the personal scandals surrounding him and all of the economic woes in Italy right now, does it surprise you that he has survived for this long?
No, in a way it's not surprising because of the way that the Italian political system, the party political system works. It works on a kind of coalition of favours and interests. So your previous commentator was absolutely right to say that, in a sense, today's victory was not surprising. But at the same time, this does not mean that his coalition is safe, that it's solid, and as we can see, it's crumbling. The only reason why it stays together is that there's a calculus of interest, primarily by the Lega Nord, but also by members of his own group and some of the independents that support his government, that they can extract more from him in terms of concessions, personal as well as political, than they would to lose if they left the government and let it fall. So at the moment, this is the reason. This is what is actually holding the government together. How long that's going to last depends very much on the balance, particularly internal to the Lega Nord, in which there's a strong debate about the perceived corrupt nature of this government. So you have a faction inside the Lega Nord that would rather let the government fall and start anew, and another part primarily tied to Umberto Bossi, the leader, who is quite happy still to remain in this government.
So what are Italy's biggest problems right now as far as the economy, Andrea Teti? Is it this debt that's 120% of GDP? Is it the unemployment problems? What is the most pressing problem for Italy right now?
It's a balance of all sorts of different problems, and although some economic commentators have pointed out that some of the fundamentals in Italy are fairly solid, but nonetheless the underlying nature of the problems is absolutely drastic.
Maurizio Caprara, if I could turn back to you on this. What is the danger that Italy, if we focus now on some of the big economic problems in Italy at the moment, what is the danger of Italy getting swallowed up now in this ongoing sovereign wealth crisis in the Eurozone? How close are they to going the same way as Greece and Ireland and Portugal and at some point needing a bailout?
Italy is not in a well position in the financial system for its public debt, but at the same time Italy is richer than Greece and Portugal, and the population is more used to save money. And we are the second economy that produces things in the European market. I mean merchandise and not just financial products. So the crisis is dangerous. At the same time, we had some ways to go ahead. The problem is that we are in danger if we don't decide to clean our home, if we don't decide to clean our budget and to save money also for the state. So this is the main problem. And in this case, we have, as the war, there are the low-intensity war. We have a low-stability country with any couple of months, we need to have a new examination of the general political situation. This is not exactly what is needed. The problem is that no one at present would like to go at government in Italy among the parties that are in the parliament. And Berlusconi, who is there, is not doing what would be necessary to clean the home. And so the situation is a little bit paralyzed. I think it can be paralyzed still again for more than weeks.
Guido Moltedo, what's your view on this? Should the economic creditors of the world be increasingly worried about Italy right now?
Well, I think that the problem is the small and the medium-sized enterprise, which is the backbone of the Italian economy, is suffering very much these days. This is one of the reasons why the Lega Nord is in disarray somehow, because in his territory there is a growing complaint about how things are working, and they distrust the government, the way it manages the crisis. So this is a real problem for Italy. When his engine, his real engine, which is, as I said, the small and medium-sized enterprise in northern east of Italy, for example, in Veneto or in Lombardia, and they don't in the market. They complain every day, about the difficult times they are going through these times, and I think this is more than the budget itself, which is a problem, of course. I'm not saying it's not a problem, but the real issue at stake is the so-called real economy, how the real Italian economy is working. And we always talk about Fiat, how Fiat is performing, and so on, how Finmeccanica is performing. But the real question mark is how the industry, the small and medium-sized industry is doing. Because if this sector of the Italian economy is not working well, the whole country, the whole economies can run a great risk of more than this political mess of these days.
Andrea Teti, I saw you nodding in agreement to some of that. I mean, you can take the very urgent measures to reduce the budget deficit, as a lot of countries in Europe are doing, and Berlusconi's government has come in the midst of this Eurozone emergency at the moment. But they've passed through stringent austerity packages to reduce this debt. But that's not the whole story, is it? You've really got to address the fundamentals of the economic problems, and neglecting measures to stimulate economic growth that the unions and the employers have been criticizing. So unless you address that, you're not really going to solve the fundamental economic problems, are you?
That's absolutely right. I mean, last year we saw, just to give people a sense of the proportion of the problem, last year we saw an emergency budget of 27 billion euros. This year we've already seen one budget of roughly the same size. Another one has been passed for 54 billion, and we're looking at potentially a third budget, an additional budget of another 20 billion by the end of the year. Now, to put even this into context, which gives you an idea of how serious the problems, the economic problems are with Italy's debt, if you calculated, if you put together all the sources of lost revenue that the Italian state doesn't collect every year, you would get around about 440 billion euros per year. If you put together the cost of corruption, the cost of the submerged economy, if you put together the cost of the value of the of organized crime, you come up with around about 440 billion euros. That's the size of the original European Financial Services Fund, the FSF fund that was supposed to rescue Greece and so on. So that gives you an idea of the lost revenue every year that Italy is not drawing on. And if you look at figures like unemployment has gone up enormously, not only in the south but also in the north. The value of the submerged economy is around about 16 or 17% of GDP. Corruption, recycled money on its own, money that's been brought back from offshore capitals that haven't been taxed, have been brought back into the country, are estimated around about 160 billion. So this gives you an idea of the lost sources of revenues that the Italian government is not drawing on. And the difficulty that I have with the economic plans that are currently being made, or the strategy, is that it's purely based on cuts. And all these major sources of lost revenue are not being addressed.
Maurizio Caprara, would you see things that way? The problem is you need to address. I mean, it's one thing to make cuts, but you need to take measures to stimulate the economy. And right now, too many people in Italy don't feel that their government is doing that.
Obviously, we have a double speed in Italy in this moment. There is a speed of the parliament, which is supporting the government with a small margin of consensus, and there is the speed of and the pace of the society. And obviously, there is a disappointment for the recent politics. And I don't think that we need a stimulation of our economy, but to stimulate the economy, you need money, and you have not this money in the office of the state in this moment. So it's difficult. We should reduce some costs, and any government will take, any new government that will be possible has to take unpopular measures. At the same time, I think that without underestimating the bad condition of our country in this moment, we have to consider it also that we have weak politics in France too, with Nicolas Sarkozy, which is not going very well in the polls and has to face is going to face the presidential election next year. I don't think that David Cameron, British Prime Minister, is very popular in his country at present, and neither the Chancellor Angela Merkel is winning several local elections in this season in his country. So we have problems, but we are surrounded with countries with other kind of problems. And maybe our problem is that we have a problem in our system. We have to clean and reorganize the state machine. Once we had the political parties, the mass political parties. Now our politics is a little bit privatized, and so it's also more difficult to mobilize consensus in each direction, in one or another direction. In any crisis, anyway, something of new comes out, and I think that it will happen anyway, also in Italy.
Andrea Teti, do you think part of the problem, part of the reason some of these problems haven't been properly addressed right now is because of the simple fact that Silvio Berlusconi owns so much of the Italian media, and that his media power has helped him to stay in control in Italy for so long?
That's definitely part of the story. But I mean, just to go back to the previous comment, it's true that France, Britain, and Germany all have their own problems. But in these countries, you don't have, if you commit tax fraud, for example, you don't have a 1 in 10,000 chance of being caught and having to cough up. Italy does have that. So, you know, we were talking earlier about the possibility of extra revenues. Well, those extra revenues are there. They need to be tapped into. Well, the problem is that the political class, and this is the criticism that you hear a lot of ordinary people making on the streets of Italy, that the political class is unwilling to proceed to really implement strong anti-corruption measures, for example, or backing the judiciary in its pursuit of corruption. Because
and is that because of too many vested interests? Sorry to jump in. Is that because of too many vested interests?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Guido Moltedo, is that the way you see things as well? That part of the problem here with the perceived corruption in the country is there really isn't a lack of will to address the problem?
Well, the corruption is an historical problem for this country. I think that what people are asking now is to play by the rules. That the rules, we have the rules, of course, just like any other Western country, and but the general feeling is that we should do more. I mean, the government first of all, and then the political people should give an example that we, as a country, we can come out of this crisis because we have the resources and we have the energy to do so. But what we have to do is to have to apply how do you say, to play by the rules, as I said. And this is a government that is an example of the opposite, and that is a government that tailor suits the rules on his own needs, and this must change, not just to save the economic situation, but to make sure that we can build a future for this country. Because at the moment, what we don't see is how we imagine the future of Italy. We don't have a future at this point of the day, you know.
Speaking of the future, just in the couple of minutes or so that we have left, I want to ask all three of you to sort of get your crystal balls out, if you can, and make a prediction about what you think will happen over the next 6 months. Will Berlusconi continue to basically survive on a wing and a prayer? And is there anyone out there who can replace him? Firstly to you, Andrea Teti.
I think at the moment, the only reason why Berlusconi is staying in power is that system of mutual convenience that we were mentioning before. But let us be in absolutely no doubt, Berlusconi has very little support in the country at large. His poll ratings are below 25%. He was massively defeated in local elections and in referenda earlier on this year. The problem is at the level of the political class. People are fed up, civil society has mobilized, but that hasn't fed into politics yet.
Maurizio Caprara, where do you see things playing out over the next few months?
There is a paradox in Italy in the last years that just Silvio Berlusconi can defeat Silvio Berlusconi. He has done a lot in this direction with the escorts and with some political steps, but he has not already defeated himself. And in the meanwhile, someone could come out and defeat him, but I don't see still another one.
Guido Moltedo, I know you said earlier the future is very uncertain for Italy right now, but as far as what will happen early next year, what's your prediction?
Well, in political terms, 1 year is an eternal time in Italy, so it's hard to predict what is going on, even next week. You know, so imagine next month, next year. But I think that the problem is, on the one hand, Berlusconi, if he's going to last. The other question, if Berlusconism, as we say, Berlusconismo, is going to last without Berlusconi, and if the question is whether this the Berlusconi mentality, the Berlusconi culture, has somehow conditioned the Italian society.
We are going to have to leave it there. We will certainly be following all of what happens in Italy and throughout Europe over the next weeks and months. But I want to thank all three of our guests for taking part: Maurizio Caprara, Andrea Teti, and Guido Moltedo. Many thanks. And that's it for this edition of Inside Story. As always, you can email us with your comments and suggestions on insidestory@aljazeera.com. Latest news is up next. Bye for now.